Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, it is a real pleasure to be here with you today, and I am delighted, absolutely delighted, to extend a very warm welcome to Edinburgh, to over 1,000 delegates from 60 different countries across the world. Your presence here is testament to the importance of this Congress, but it also demonstrates that we share a very strong commitment to creating a more inclusive world. I'm very grateful to Rehabilitation International and to the Shaw Trust for the excellent work that they have done in organising this event. Their efforts have already secured a lasting legacy in the city, not least by ensuring the increased accessibility of this conference venue. I'm delighted that Scotland was selected as the host country for this World Congress. As we have already heard, the last time the World Congress was held in the UK was in 1956. It was officially opened then by His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, so it is particularly fitting that Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal has started proceedings today and formally opened this Congress. Now, in the almost 60 years since that first UK-based Congress, the way that we think about people with disabilities and disability itself has changed a great deal. And while there is a great deal of work still to do, I think we would all agree that it has changed very much for the better. On an international level, the issue of disability rights has become a major focus of the human rights agenda through milestones like the United Nations Declaration and later the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And the creation and the continuing success of the Paralympics and Special Olympics has inspired generations of disabled people and redefined expectations around their abilities and ambitions. And major grassroots movements on issues like independent living and self-advocacy have changed attitudes and empowered disabled people to take more control over their own lives. And of course, these advances have come about because of the outstanding work done by hundreds, thousands of disabled people and by a very wide range of organisations. In short, by those of you here today and people like you across the world. So there's much to celebrate as we gather here in Edinburgh. But as we all know, there is still much work still to do. The economic upheaval of the past decade has undoubtedly exacerbated inequalities right across the globe. And we've seen all too clearly what this rise in inequality can result in: greater alienation, exclusion, and social instability. And disabled people have very often been those who have suffered the most from that. And that's why we now need, in my view, to redouble our efforts to tackle inequality head on and ensure that everyone has the chance to realise his or her full potential. The UN Sustainable Development Goals that were adopted in 2015 represent a very clear call to action on this front, as they specifically focus on reducing inequalities. And I'm very proud that Scotland was one of the first countries to sign up to these global goals, because that indicates our strong commitment to a more equal and a more inclusive world. And the key themes that you will focus on over the next 3 days of this Congress: employment, education and skills, independent living, and international development and partnerships, identify very clearly where we all need to focus our efforts. In Scotland, we are already taking action in these key areas as we work to deliver the requirements of the UN Convention. For example, we have already pledged to use the Scottish Parliament's new powers to create a dedicated employability service for people with disabilities. We have already safeguarded the rights of our most severely disabled people by establishing the Scottish Independent Living Fund. And as part of the Scottish Government's international framework, we are promoting collaboration with other countries to tackle inequalities around the world. Indeed, one of our further education colleges at Glasgow, Kelvin College, has partnered with an industry body in India to develop employability schemes for people with disabilities in that country. And that's an example, just one example, but an important one, of Scotland sharing our experiences and expertise to improve the lives of disabled people across the world. But we also recognise that we have much to learn from other countries, and so we are determined too to learn from the best practice and best ideas of other countries. That's why, as an example, we're exploring the Bertzog model of care that has been so successful in the Netherlands. The Bertzog principles of self-help, independence, and integration of support are exactly those that we embrace here in Scotland. So in the coming months, we will begin testing this model in a range of localities across the country. And through initiatives like this, we continually seek to improve the support that people with disabilities receive and, crucially, ensure that that support is tailored to their individual circumstances. And that is hugely important because disabled people are not a homogenous group. They are individuals, and as such have individual circumstances, needs and aspirations. And these can change over time. And that fundamental truth is one that we have recognised here in Scotland. It's why we decided to integrate health and social care, one of the most significant reforms we've seen in the way we deliver healthcare since the establishment of the National Health Service back in the late 1940s. And in doing so, we've made our National Health Service and our local government services jointly responsible for delivering the coordinated care and support that people need. And that's ensuring that people consistently get the right help, whatever their needs, at any point in their lives. And we've also redefined the principles of social care by implementing self-directed support. We know that far too often people with disability have simply been seen as service users with little contribution to make in deciding the direction of their own lives. This kind of attitude can not only have a demoralising effect on individuals, but it can also very often mean that they don't receive the right support because they've not had their full say in determining the support that best meets their needs. So self-directed support empowers people with disabilities, it empowers carers and the families of people with disabilities so that they have control and choice when it comes to their own lives, control and choice that the rest of us take for granted. And it helps ensure that people get the support that is specific to their circumstances, whether that involves employing personal assistants to allow them to work or using new technologies to improve access to support. So our work in Scotland is ongoing. We've come a long way, but have a long way still to go. And as all of you know, trying to change attitudes and bring about positive, lasting change is not easy. To succeed, our efforts require expertise, creativity, and determination. And I think it is exactly those qualities that disabled people's organisations bring to the cause. Your real-life experience helps us identify the policy and the service changes that need to be made. And your tenacity and focus inspire and energise those of us who work with you. The partnership between disabled people's organisations and government has been a key feature of the progress that we have made here in Scotland. It has underpinned the development of our plan to deliver the requirements of the UN Convention, and it is a feature of all of the improvements that we seek to make. For example, just last month, we published a new accessible travel framework. That framework is designed to improve the accessibility of our transport system, and it is the product of 2 years of collaborative work between people with disabilities, disability organisations, transport operators and government. It sets out the need to make the views of disabled people a central focus of policy making, not an afterthought of policy making. And that is something we recognise that we must embed across policy making at all levels. There is no way we will reduce disability-based inequalities without fully involving those who are most affected. And when it comes to their own lives, people with disabilities are the real experts, and it's important that government and all policymakers see and treat them as such. However, this form of collaboration between government and people with disabilities can't be the limit of our ambitions. There's another very obvious and very direct way in which we can strengthen the voice of disabled people in our political process, and that's by making sure that people with disabilities have every opportunity to run for and be successful in running for elected office. Currently, people with disabilities are significantly underrepresented in elected and democratic politics at national and at local level. Political parties, of course, have a big role to play in addressing this, and much more needs to be done. My own party recently held a disabled members conference, which I was delighted to attend. It was a first for any political party in Scotland, a conference organised by disabled people for disabled people. It brought people together for a day of workshops, keynote speakers, and vibrant discussion. And a key part of the agenda was very simply, how do we ensure that people with disabilities are properly represented in the political process? And that, I think, is important. And some of the messages we hear are about accessibility in a very practical sense. Sometimes it's about the cost for people with disabilities of standing for elected office. And that's why I'm very proud to say that in Scotland we recently created an Access to Elected Office Fund for our local government elections next year. That's been administered by Inclusion Scotland, one of our country's disabled people's organisations, and indeed they're well represented here today. I can see a great advocate for inclusion and participation. And hopefully it will ensure that disabled candidates can access the funding they need so that they can compete on a level playing field. And we all hope that it will create a lasting legacy by helping to familiarise prospective disabled candidates with the electoral process and by demonstrating that there should be no barriers to elected office. And ultimately, I think that's what this Congress is all about, trying to create a fairer, more equal society where people with disabilities can fulfil their full potential. So as I have said already, I'm very proud of the progress we have made in Scotland, but I am acutely aware that there is much more that we still have to do and much more that we still have to learn, which is why this event is so important. In the next 3 days, you will share your range of different experiences, different opinions, and different ideas. In doing so, you will increase our collective understanding of the challenges that disabled people face across the globe. And you will help to guide the future actions that we all need to take in order to deliver a more equal and a more inclusive world. So that is why I am so delighted to welcome all of you to Scotland, and I wish you all the very best for a constructive and a very successful Congress. Thank you very much indeed.